unfortunately, the truth is that you don't find time because you're doing the same things over and over again. And this kind of comes back to habits, right? Is that we're in this routine and it's really hard to find time to do something new.
Hello and welcome to Habit Nerd, a podcast show that knows that few things can have a more powerful impact on your life than improving your daily systems, habits, and mindset. I'm your host, Dr. Bree Hurn, a multi-passionate researcher, lecturer, speaker, and coach. Once a perfectionist who was always busy but not necessarily effective, I overcame illness and burnout and am now obsessed with sharing the science and systems for working with efficiency and habits for abundant health in your mind and your body. Each week, my guests and I share stories and lessons backed by research. So let's buckle up and dive straight into today's empowering conversation. Hi Habit Nerds, Dr. Natalie Barre is a time management coach who helps working parents take control of their days so they can craft the life of their dreams. As a former neuropsychologist, Natalie is an expert in brain science and cognition and uses this knowledge as the basis for her approach to time management, goal setting, and self-care. She believes that work-life balance is attainable and that we can choose our activities with intention and get the important work done without the hustle and the burnout. When she's not supporting hardworking humans to make real changes, she's working in her graphic design business, a tactile perception, spending time with her family, and eating chocolate. All right. So welcome Habit Nerds back to this episode. I'm really excited today to welcome Dr. Natalie Barre. Now, Natalie is a time management coach and a productivity expert. So welcome, Natalie, and thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Now, I've said time management coach and productivity expert, but actually you are a doctor of neuropsychology. Can you tell me and our guests what that actually means?
Yeah, of course. So for 10 years, I worked as a clinical neuropsychologist. And what that means is that I'm an expert in cognition and I worked in hospitals for 10 years, really helping patients who had different sorts of brain dysfunction, brain disorders. So mostly in the neurology department, and these were people who had things like dementia, stroke, multiple sclerosis, brain tumours, really the whole gamut. But of course, in my clinic and in the hospital, we sometimes had people come in who thought there was something wrong but didn't. And so a lot of the assessments really focused on what their everyday difficulties were. I would do a formal assessment of their cognition. That's really our bread and butter as a neuropsychologist. And then we would spend a lot of time educating people around their strengths and weaknesses and what they could actually do practically to really manage the difficulties that they were experiencing day to day. So both healthy people and people who are really quite unwell as well. So that's what a neuropsychologist does. So I do have a PhD in that area and a master's degree as well. And as I said, I worked as a registered psychologist, a registered neuropsychologist for 10 years. And then I really decided to change tack.
Fantastic. Wow. Thanks for unpacking the neuro part of the psychology. So that's the cognition link, I understand. Is it fair to say
the brain part?
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to dive a lot deeper in our conversation, but even though you've changed tack, as you say, does that background inform the work that you find yourself doing today?
Absolutely. So cognition is really where I sit, and it's not something that people pay attention to, a lot. People don't often use that word, and in the self-help kind of space, we think a lot about our emotions, rightly so, and our mindset and our thoughts, again, rightly so. But we can also understand a lot of our thinking skills. So these are things like our memory, our attention, our planning abilities, our impulse control, our visual processing, our working memory, and how do all of these things fit together to support our everyday behaviours. So that absolutely informs that. And given that I have a PhD as well, I can go straight to the science and read that, decode it, and actually translate that for people to say, look, here are all these tips that we've found in the science. This is what you can be doing. And, fair enough, people kind of find their own rhythm in terms of things like time management and planning and habits and things like that. But, and that's great. That's great that works for people. But let's sort of cut through that noise and see, well, what does the science say about what's most effective?
That is fascinating. And as a co-researcher, certainly speaking my language, the idea that it's a saturated market in this self-help, and as you say, no shade there. You know, we're both swimming in that soup, you know, to an extent ourselves. But I think your secret sauce and the magic that you're bringing to your work, and what I'm so appreciative of having your time today, is that being able to disseminate the messages from the scientific field and really amplify that in the everyday, you know, life of somebody trying to, you know, live in a way that's productive for them. That is such a gift. And so, you know, just hats off to you for really intersecting the science with where that happens in life, you know, as somebody who's able to communicate that with your audience. So I'm excited to dive in. So Natalie, all of my guests, I start off with a question around habits, because this is the Habit Nerd podcast. So what is a habit that serves you and that helps you show up as the person that you'd like to be?
Oh, look, I think I'd really like to be, and something that I'm ongoing, you know, moving towards, I'd really like to be someone who is fit and strong and agile. And I've sort of waxed and waned a little bit with that. You know, in the last couple of years, I was pregnant for most of 2023 and then had a baby, and she's just turned 1. And so I felt really out of step with being that kind of fit, agile person. And so now I'm really getting back into yoga. So I've done a lot of yoga over the last 20 years. And now I'm really trying to get back into that. So forming some good habits around getting back to that kind of fit, agile person. And so because I spend a lot of my time at home, I'm still looking after baby Ruby and the rest of my family, and trying to work from home as well. It's important for me to find time and to allocate time to doing things like yoga and exercise. And so for me, a good habit that I try to do is just find a particular time of the day where I know it will fit really well. And rather than a time, as in like 12 o'clock,
yes,
I try to put it after something that I know happens every day. So I know that baby Ruby has a nap in the morning. She wakes up roughly 11ish, and then we do her lunch. So I feed her. And then I know that there's this time after that where she's happy to play with me and be on the floor. And that's when I can do yoga. So I roll out my mat and she likes to chew on it, and it's lots of fun. And she sort of half climbs on me and I'm doing my yoga, and we're spending time together. She's playing, and that's a really, really good time, because then it means we still get to spend time together and she's exploring. And then when she goes down for her second nap, I then get to go and work, and I'm feeling really good because I've done my yoga. So I feel like by kind of putting that into my routine in that way, that helps me support, you know, getting back to that person that I want to be.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you probably recognize the term habit stacking. So the idea is that you would stack something that you want to do on something that you already is happening. And so, you know, by the time, you know, Ruby gets up and it's the cue, I would imagine she's sitting in her high chair and she's had her lunch, you've cleaned up, and then it's time for you to straight away, without thinking, it's become settled and automatic almost for you to roll out the yoga mat and get into it. And I love that realistic take that, you know, she's on top of you and chewing the mat and dribbling everywhere, and that's mum life. But, you know, it would be so easy to say, oh, it's just too hard to do it while I've got a baby at home, or, you know, it's just, I would, you know, if I do that, I'm not going to get to, you know, writing the piece or recording the podcast episode or whatever it is that, you know, you could be using that time for. But can you tell me what it is about yoga, or what it is about wanting to be fit and strong and agile, that is aligning with the way you want to feel and the person that you want to be?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I remember doing yoga for the first time, and it was at university. They were running a class at the university gym at the University of Melbourne, which I think you went to as well.
Yes, and still work at.
Yes, fabulous. So I went to a yoga class in the evenings, and I'd never really kind of done it before. I was just thought, oh, everyone else is going to the gym, you know, I'll do yoga class. And I remember coming out of it physically feeling warm, but like sunshine. I know that sort of sounds a bit strange, but that's how I felt in my body.
I think any yogis would definitely recognize that exact feeling.
And I just thought, oh, I'm going to do this again, you know? And so I just love feeling that way. And I actually said to my husband the other day, I said, you know, I really physically feel I know that I haven't been to yoga like all year. I haven't really been doing it. And I've kind of been getting back into it, but not in the way that I used to. And I know that physically I want to feel better, and I want to feel more flexible, more fit, more strong. Between us, we have 5 children, and so I want to be fit and agile.
That functional fitness, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely that feeling of just physically. I don't want to feel tired and, achy and groaning when I get up off the floor playing with baby Ruby.
Yes,
and, so it's definitely a physical driver for me to get back to that.
And obviously, I think also just to infer, there's the physical fitness, and so all of, the strength and, as you say, being able to be on the floor and up and agile and all of those sorts of things. But I feel as though it's linked to your self-efficacy. I feel as though you feel better about yourself, and then therefore, attack your work and your parenting and whatever else with a more positive attitude and mindset because of that sort of practice. So sounds like it's paying dividends.
Yeah, and it has the physical aspect, it has the mental aspect, it has a physiological aspect where you're taking time to pause, reflect, be calm, and yes, you're doing like a strong physical workout, I suppose, but it definitely has that calming mindfulness element as well. And I feel like by doing that in the middle of the day, it's a little bit like a reset where I can actually then kind of tackle the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, you've really inspired me. Yoga is something that, something I've never been able to make stick, but that I absolutely, even hearing you talk about it now, I'm reminded of just all of the benefits, beyond the physical, as you say. Reminds me of during lockdown, when we're all not able to go out and exercise in groups, etc. I would do online Pilates sessions. So I would go into the front room, I remember, and, get onto a Zoom session with a group and do a Pilates session. And I didn't so much enjoy the physical practice of the Pilates so much as I enjoyed when I got back to work. I remember even if I was on Zoom meetings or I was teaching online, I almost had a glow that came from the inside out, that it was just almost
the sunshine.
The inner sunshine. So that's really inspired me. So my next question is always around the systems that support the habit. So, habits only become embedded once there's something that supports, the ongoing nature of you being able to do it. So you've answered that beautifully in that you schedule it in. So you take control of the day so that it's there before the day takes control of you, but also that you're stacking it against something that's already happening. And also you've got a positive association, because obviously you can see that Ruby's enjoying, being near her mum, and, and that's a lovely connection time that you're sharing together as well.
Yeah, I think there is a couple of other things as well that makes it more kind of easy for me as well. And that is like you said, I can't necessarily sit down and do like an hour-long yoga class where I have to watch the thing and do it. And obviously Ruby's there, and sometimes she cries, and sometimes she gets into the boys' Lego, and I can't just do it in a strict, regimented way. Right. Even if I do 20 minutes, even if I do 5 minutes and then I give her a cuddle and then I do another 5 minutes, or, and then I do another 20 minutes, it's okay that it's broken up. It's better than nothing.
Absolutely.
It's much better than nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so having that mindset of like, it's okay, like if we get interrupted, or if something happens, or if she needs a nappy change, or if whatever it is, or maybe I do get 40 minutes straight, and that's fine too. Like that's much better, and that's okay, and that's acceptable, and I accept that like mentally. Then I'm not kind of sitting going, oh, should I do it today? I don't know if I've got time, and all that kind of decision making.
Yes.
Yeah, and it takes mental energy to do that, to kind of think through that, to go through, shouldn't I, deciding if I know that I'm going to do it. Like if it's a habit, I don't need to think about that.
That's right.
And the other thing that I found is that when I sort of started to find my rhythm with a newborn and work out what I was doing and trying to kind of fit in exercise, I try not to think about time like that, like, oh, I'm going to fit it in or squeeze it in. I try to go, okay, when am I going to allocate, like what 30 minutes of the day am I going to allocate to yoga? And I tried to, for a while I was doing it during her naps, and I was like, oh yeah, that works because I can concentrate, but actually I want to spend that time working and doing other things. So what I found was when I was trying to do that, I would go to do yoga, and then I realized that my yoga mat and all my equipment was upstairs in the room where she was sleeping. I was like, oh, hang on a minute.
So the decision was made for you, really.
Exactly. I was like, oh, I can't do that. So I actually started storing all of my stuff downstairs in the lounge room where I actually do my yoga. So, the stuff is stored like right next to the kitchen where she's just had her food. And so, we've just fed her. She's had her food, and then the yoga mat's right there. The space is there.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we can just go ahead and do it. There's no thinking involved,
Yeah. So important. So, really overcoming or moving beyond that all or nothing mentality that gets us into trouble. It's the same as any habit, particularly around exercise, I would imagine. I love that saying that, if you could do a slow run, the slowest walk around the block, and you're still lapping the people who are on the couch, so that idea that It's not about being incredible and having a 1 hour uninterrupted session. It's something is always better than nothing. And also, just that really simple tip of having the yoga mat and, you're probably the gear ready to go. You're already in your, your pants or your shorts or whatever. You don't have to go upstairs, get changed, come back down, because all of those things are natural barriers to you doing it. And your brain would take those cues as, oh, well, too hard basket. So,
Exactly.
You've really done the work to put the systems in place. The other thing that comes up over and over in this idea of habit formation is people focus on the whole thing and not just starting. So if you had told yourself that you were doing a YouTube clip that went for 45 minutes, say a guided yoga session, and you only had 15 minutes, or, you thought you had 45 minutes and then Ruby got upset, or, she jammed her finger and needed, help or whatever, that then you would be likely to just go, oh, this is just too hard. If we focus on starting and not finishing, it's amazing how the hardest part is getting the yoga mat out, or the hardest part is putting on the yoga pants. It's once that's done, the rest is easy. And then, as you say, 20 minutes is amazing because 20 minutes is better than 0. 10 minutes is amazing because that's better than 0. So, yeah, excellent.
That's
I feel like
right.
we've used yoga as kind of the framework, but that, we've covered so much ground around, the practice of embedding positive habits. So thank you, Natalie.
And like you say, but like with starting feels so hard. And you might want to just say to yourself, because this comes back to mindset, right? It's like you might want to say to yourself, well, if I just get started, if I just lie down on the mat, sometimes I really don't even have the energy. I'm just going to lie down on the mat. And I'm just going to do 2 minutes. And it's that part that's the hardest part of the entire process. So if I can just do that, then I know I'll just start stretching my feet, or I'll just start doing something really easy. And next thing, I expected to do 2 minutes, and actually I've done 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, because it was starting that was the hardest thing.
That's right. That's exactly right. And do you know, even if you did 2 minutes, that would be fine, because 2 minutes was better than 0. So I try and use that methodology in lots of different things. I know you would be the same as a researcher when you're writing something. Writing a research article feels so much.
Staring at the blank page.
It's so overwhelming.
Just write something.
Just write the first word. Even write, this is really hard, I'm struggling with this.
Right.
Even typing that out, it's just that physical, mental barrier, getting over it, and then getting started. Yeah, I know. I heard an author once talk about the Hemingway method, and this is kind of the same idea, that apparently Hemingway would finish a sentence deliberately in the middle at the end of the day, so that when he would get up the next morning and be ready to write, he would just have to finish that sentence that he'd already started. So it was
a very easy starting
just
point.
that idea that it's the hardest part is starting. And even though we know we're tricking our brain that once we get started, we're likely to keep going, it's like that trick just never wears off. We can just always go back to just put your shoes on and do them up. Even if that's all you do, you will go for a walk if your runners are at the front door, and you can tie up your laces. That will be the hurdle that will, make it easy to get over. So what about, Natalie, is there currently a habit that you feel isn't aligned with the person that you're aiming to be? And if there is, what do you feel might be standing in the way of you overcoming that habit?
Yeah, look, I feel like probably I use my phone too much. I think that's a
Welcome
common
to
one.
the
but
club
it's
of
definitely
every single person.
yes,
Yes,
every
unfortunately.
single parent.
Yes,
Yeah,
parent,
look, I
yes.
mean, phones are enjoyable. They're a little bit addictive. They're fun, and it's also what I use to do my work as well. You know, I'm on Instagram, this sort of thing. So I'm either on my phone because the kids want me to look up when the Manchester United soccer game is on or something, or I'm on my phone because they want me to play something on Spotify, or I'm on my phone because I'm checking Instagram, my
Yes.
work one or my personal one. So there's lots of
Yes.
reasons to go on
Yes.
my phone in
Yes.
theory.
Yes.
But actually, if I think about this from the perspective of the kids when they're around, they're seeing mum staring at her phone when really I actually want to be present with my children. And part of my identity, my values, and who I want to be is about being a present parent and being a really solid presence for them. And because of what I know about the brain as well, like I don't want to have my attention split between the phone and them when they're
Yes.
there.
Yes.
And it's something that I used to do a lot because in the past I was juggling small business, working 4 days as a neuropsychologist and being a single parent. And I think I got into a really bad habit of doing that.
Right.
And just trying to juggle all the things, whereas now things are much more much better paced, I would say.
Yeah, a bit more
and so
streamlined.
I really want to just have that time when the kids are around and I'm with my kids. That's what I'm doing. And I need to be able to put my phone down a little bit more. So it's something that I'm kind of toying with. It's not something that I've really, really hard implemented yet, but I feel like if I can, we talk about habits as having a trigger or a cue, and that's like the most important thing is like what is triggering this habit, which is subconscious or automatic.
Yes.
It's just I've got it in my hand. I carry it around with me, and I'm either a little bit like I'm waiting for something, I'm waiting for them to do something, I'm waiting for them to brush their teeth, and then I'm going to put them to bed or something. And I just automatically pull my phone out of my pocket and start doing something. And they come around the corner and they see mum on her phone again. And so if I can just put it down in a central spot, so if we need it for something, I can go to it or we can go to it.
Yes.
And it's not just something that mum is doing, and then I can put it down, but then when I'm with them, I'm not carrying it around and I don't have it there all the time. So that's really something that I'm working on at the moment.
Yeah. I think thank you for your honesty, and I certainly align with all of that. One of the problems I know with my children, and I feel that sense of guilt that they would see me on my phone, is that they can't differentiate if I am doing internet banking or if I'm on Instagram. So, and it may be that I'm on Instagram and I'm looking for that, dopamine hit or something to, work with my boredom, as you say, while I'm waiting for them to brush their teeth or whatever that is. Hi everyone, I do hope you're enjoying The Habit Nerd. Now, whilst I love sharing research-informed, tried and tested habits for work, health and mindset on this podcast, you might not know that I am also a keynote speaker and I facilitate workshops. Now, I've opened up a limited amount of dates just in the first half of 2025 so that your organisation or event can engage me, the Habit Nerd. We can work together to refine the message just for your context, but I can use the principles of behavioural science and organisational psychology to create and sustain positive habits and cover things like task prioritisation, calendar management, hybrid work practices, managing email, and productivity habits, just to name a few. I can also help you with which habits have the most comprehensive impact across your life, work and learning habits, habits to create and maintain physical health, and mental health habits to thrive in a busy life. So if a warm, engaging presentation or workshop dripping in practical strategies and propped up by credible research sounds like something you or your organisation could really do with, then go to The Habit Nerd on Instagram. Let's work together to create some really great habits. So it's the time of recording and we're emerging into the first part of a new year. So we would turn our attention naturally to making resolutions to embed positive change or to act differently in the new year of 2025. Why do you think it is that New Year's resolutions get such a bad rap? And how can we set ourselves up for success with more meaningful goals?
Yeah, so I feel like this is a time really when everyone is kind of thinking about goal setting. We're thinking about 2025 as this singular entity, like I need to do something in 2025, or what are you going to achieve in 2025? When really it's just a continuation of time and what you're already doing, right? But there's something about a new year where some people think of it as like a clean slate and I want to change something, which can be hard. And some people, want to maybe improve something. And so because everyone else is doing it, I feel like they get a little bit of a bad rap because it feels quite tokenistic.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, what's your New Year's resolutions? Oh, I don't know, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to get more fit,
sort of
or
make
I'm
fun
going to
of
eat
it,
better.
don't we? Yes.
And you're like, okay.
As
and
if.
then by the second week of January, you're like, what am I doing? I'm
Yes.
just doing the same thing as I did 4
That's
weeks ago,
right.
even though it was a different year, right? And so it is this change in year, but it's just a I can't even say the word. Continuation of time. So I do think they get a bad rap, but really it's just a different way of saying goal setting. It's an opportunity. So the turn of the year is an opportunity to pause, reflect. What have I been doing? Is it intentional? Can I maybe tweak something? Can I bring in something new? Can I live more towards the life of my dreams? What can I do? And I actually love this time. I love it so much. It's my favorite week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yes.
You don't really know what day it is,
Yeah.
and no one really expects anything of you, and you're eating Christmas leftovers, and it's warm, and
it's a really magic
great.
week,
I love
isn't
it.
it? Yes.
It's a magic week. And so I actually use that time to, like I said, pause and reflect on the previous year, and really think about what do I want to do in 2025. And I actually do this with my husband as well. And we think about what goals do we have separately? Do we have some goals that we can both do together and support each other as well? So in terms of setting more meaningful goals, I would try to move away from that tokenism and say, well, is there something that I want to do differently? And let's think about some ideas that align with my values that I want to do. Don't necessarily jump on the bandwagon of, oh, I want to get fitter, or I want to lose weight, or I want to eat more healthy. That's, quite common ones.
Yes.
There might be something totally different that you really want to focus on. You might want to start to learn how to grow bonsai. I don't know. There's millions of things you could do, but think about what piques your curiosity, what fits with your identity and your values, and dream a little bit. Like I like to say, dare to dream. We're so stuck in our everyday routine that this following year might be exactly the same as the previous year. And that might be okay if you're already living like a fabulous life, and that's great. But maybe you're not, and dare to dream. Take some time to think about, what do I really want? Could that be possible for me? Is there something I can do to make it a little bit more possible and make that goal really meaningful for you? And then it's about doing a few other steps to actually turn that dream, that idea, into action steps that you can take every day, every week towards building that up.
Yeah, I really love that reframing of being brave to dream something a little bit out of the ordinary, and really, that invitation to be introspective about what is it that would really light me up, and it's not because there are ads for the gym on the TV that, now's the best time to get fit and, to lose however many kilos, or just because. And I think, as you say, it's the tokenism and it's the kind of tongue-in-cheek laughing that we do with those sorts of quote-unquote goals that have given them a bad rap. But your invitation to dream, be introspective, and think, what is something that it could be as out there and as outlandish to sounding to someone else, but it means something to you? Because when it's meaningful, as you say, and it's aligned with your inner value system and your sense of identity, what would be some of the things that people in your community might be dreaming up for intentions in a new year?
It's so varied. It's so varied. And, yes, health and fitness goals are amazing and you can absolutely have those, but it might be something really fun, like, I don't know, trying new foods, going somewhere new, trying something new, exploring the local community with your kids. Sometimes we drive around and we see a new playground and we go, oh, you could go on a playground quest and just do a new playground every month. I don't know, like it can be literally anything. And this is where I think you can't start at goal setting. I think you actually have to start at dreaming, and you have to start at, well, what's possible for me? And like, if I can tell a personal story, 7-8 years ago, I was working as a neuropsychologist. I was married, had 2 kids, and then my marriage ended, and I really had to come to a decision around, well, do I want to keep working and have the kids in a lot of care and be this single mum, or do I want to prioritize them a little bit more and perhaps work less or work around them? And I really had this dream in my heart to do graphic design, to make planners, and this is how Live an Intentional Life was actually born. And now it's kind of morphed into the time management stuff, but I do sell planners and workbooks. And so I really wanted to design those. I wanted to be a graphic designer. I also have a business making wedding invitations, and that was my dream. And it seems silly if you go to work with the neurologist and say, oh, actually, I want to leave my job and become a graphic designer and a time management coach. People would just think I was very strange. And so, but that's okay. Like, I dared to dream, and I dared to kind of completely flip the script on what I was doing in my life. Anyone else would just say, well, this is my job, this is my career, I can't change that. I can't do that, anything different. But maybe you can. If there's something in your heart that's calling you, even if it's totally different, like, that's okay.
I am so inspired by that, and thank you for sharing that personal story. Can I just ask, what did the neurologists at work say when you told them? Had you built that up to be a story that was, had you put that on them and that was an assumption that you'd made about their response to that? Or did they say, well, that's a bit strange?
So they didn't say that. I definitely in my mind felt a little bit self-conscious around wanting to do something a little bit different. And that's my own story for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. But then it was funny, I work with I used to work with a whole bunch of different people in the hospital, not just doctors, but all allied health, all sorts of different people. And so I would tell people that I was leaving, and all sorts of stories came out of the woodwork. So one of the professors said, oh yeah, I used to develop web apps. I was like, wow. Oh, okay. And then one of the consultant neurologists, she also painted, and she has her paintings in art exhibitions on the side. That's just what she does. And I didn't know that. And then I told someone else who I didn't even knew, and they were like, oh yeah, I'm in a band and I play some musical instrument. And I'd be like, of course you are, because we are whole beings that don't just focus on work. We have other loves and interests and desires, and that's okay. And, you tell these people, and 99% of the time you're talking about patients and work and brains and things.
Yeah, of course.
And then you bring this new idea to people. Like, oh, yeah, I do. I'm in a choir. Someone told me they were in a choir.
I love that.
Okay, fantastic.
I love that. But also, they only told you because you told them. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it was actually you opening up that connection and being brave enough to say, yeah, this is going to sound a bit strange, and it's not. You're not going to understand this because I've got you over in that corner, but actually I sit over here. And they say, no, I have a creative side as well, or I have a dream that may not make me money, for example, but I sing in a choir and that lights me up and supplements the sort of work that I do here. So I have I think that's so lovely. And I am a little bit similar in that, this work, that this podcast that I've sort of done a little sidestep in has been something that I've been doing a little bit under the table. And I think I'm carrying around similar stories, working with other academics and PhDs and, people who are kind of hardcore quantitative researchers, that I could be, something that I've always kind of enjoyed learning about myself is now something that I'm, dabbling in my own life. And I've had to really interrogate that story about what it means about me and how that makes me appear to my colleagues. What I've landed at is that as long as I'm acting ethically and that, with integrity, it's actually no one else's business. And in fact, other people care a lot less about my story than I think they do, just like I care a lot less about what they're doing than they might think I do. Everybody's, remind me of that beautiful Mary Oliver quote that we have one.
Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
We have one wild and precious life. So why would we keep working and keep, doing a full-time gig of something that, yes, was paying the bills, but that was not filling us up. It was keeping us away from our children, or it was, denying a dream, a little spark that we had. So I just want to thank you for empowering people with that first step around dreaming. So it's, goal setting feels so clinical. It feels like we need to have it, in a set of boxes, and step 1, step 2, step 3 in a spreadsheet. Yeah. So actually all of that is denying that first magical part of, and it reminds me, if, you're somebody, I know I like to do it, a visualization, really deliberate visualization practice of, my dream day, my dream life, my dream week. And when I come out of that, the buzzing sense of anticipation I have for things being the way I want them to be is such a gift. And that is, as you say, that's dreaming. That is just, being brave enough and excited enough about your life to think that, you could do different things and fun things and things that align with you. So
yeah, I love that you mentioned visualization, because that's such a powerful tool, and really placing yourself in the future, thinking about your future self. What do you want for that person? And what does that person think about what you're doing now? Does that change where you want to go? And I take people through visualizations, ideal weeks, future self in my time management course, Timewise. So this is a course where we talk about time management, but it's a really broad course in terms of starting with dreaming, visualization, ideal week, and working out exactly kind of what your purpose is, and then moving into prioritizing all of the things that you want to do with your one wild and precious life, and then planning it out. So what am I doing with my 168 hours a week or whatever it is? Everyone's got the same amount of fixed time in the week, in the day. What are you doing with that time? Is it intentional? Is it just sort of automatic habits where you're, just scrolling on Instagram for an hour every night? Or are you doing something with your time that you really, really love and that fills your cup?
Wow, that sounds like an excellent course. Your participants sound really lucky. Now, if you mentioned that that you make planners, and that's sort of, aligning with your graphic design skill set. What is the role then of planning this dream week and using something like a planner? Like, how would you advocate its use for people that you work with?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to take time to plan. So, people kind of walk around with the to-do list in their mind, or they'll just have like a big long to-do list.
Yes.
And that can be a little bit overwhelming. You can forget things for sure if you're not writing it down. Mm-hmm. And when you move all of your activities into a planner and you actually take time to sit down maybe at the end of a Sunday or the start of a Monday for that week, mm-hmm. and you map it all out, you can actually see really clearly what you've got on. You can see how long things are going to take and how much time you actually have during the day. So you probably can't do the 57 things on your to-do list all by the end of Monday.
Right. So
and if you get this pressure, right? And so you can actually map it all out. And it takes the pressure off you, because you can see, that thing that I really need to do, I'll put it down for Thursday. It's there. I'll get to it. I can have it out of my mind for now and just feel less stressed, feel less overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like that's such a benefit of a planner, mm-hmm. for sure. And so I encourage people to take time to do that. The Intentional Life Planner, which is what I offer, has, for every week, there is obviously the weekly planner, but then I encourage people to look back at their goals and turn their goals into action steps, and then put those in that weekly spread and then allocate them to a time in the planner, so that you can actually, rather than your goals kind of sitting in the back of your mind or in the bottom of a desk drawer or something, you've actually got them in your planner, you've turned them into action steps, mm-hmm. and you've put them on the calendar, because what you're doing every day makes up your life. Mm. If you're just thinking, I'll get to that one day, I might do that, I've got to find time to fit it in. Well, unfortunately, the truth is that you don't find time, because you're doing the same things over and over again. And this kind of comes back to habits, right? Is that we're in this routine, and it's really hard to find time to do something new. But if we can map it out and go, look, when it comes to 8 p.m. on Thursday night, I'm actually going to spend an hour reading this really cool book that I got, and rather than just sort of getting around to finding time to read,
and hoping that the time somehow magically eventuates.
That's right. And guess what? No, that never
it doesn't. Yes.
So I love a planner. I love a paper planner. You can absolutely do this digitally as well. But a lot of people love a paper planner. I'm a visual person. I like to lay it out and actually write it out by hand.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that, having a planner.
Yeah, I completely I'm the same. I've got my paper planner just to the left of screen here. The thing that I really like that you said, and I find, would be really helpful for listeners to understand, is that the action steps are actually, instead of thinking, oh my God, like look how much this goal is going to take all of these steps, it's actually the opposite. It's, okay, now there's a time to have those steps stepped out and my attention is there. My attention's going to be on that and only that. So therefore I'm going to do a good job of that. And that's important to me because, as you say, it comes from that dreaming and that ideal week and that sort of, dream life that you're trying to craft. So I think I wish I learned this way too late in life. And so I really do hope, that listeners learn this more quickly than I did. And it's something I try and teach my kids, is that a due date is one thing. The due date is actually more important. So, when you say you've got kids who are at school and they've got a big assignment due or they've got an exam coming up, there's no good putting the due date in and then just hoping that some magic will happen and the due date will come and all of a sudden you're ready for the exam. And it will be
magically done.
Yeah, or your head's full of the material, or, the essay is written and, edited and finished and ready to hand in. No, it actually takes action leading up to that. So the power of a due date or a number of due dates leading up to that really releases that pressure, because you go, oh, okay, it still feels big, but it feels manageable now because I know between 12 and 3 on Wednesday, I am going to make sure I've got everything I need. I've got my water nearby. I've got everything else, all the other apps closed on my computer or whatever it is, and I'm focusing on that. And then the other thing, again, I wish I'd learned earlier, is, as you say, if you've got 57 things to do, you're not going to get 57 things done. So if you think something's going to take 45 minutes, give it an hour, just so that you are kind to yourself, that there's a 15-minute boundary there, so that you're not then going, oh my God, that was supposed to take 45 minutes. It took an hour and a half. Now I'm pathetic.
Now I'm really behind.
Yeah, and
I'm
also
so behind, and
then
I'm so stressed.
And then also, look how lazy I am. Look how ineffective I am. And then that becomes a story that you tell about yourself, which is just...
And then that becomes a driver for procrastination.
That's
well.
right.
It's like, oh, well, I'm well behind now. I might as well do nothing.
What's the point?
So,
yeah.
What's the point?
That's exactly right. So for all of those reasons that you just said, I think, the planning practice, but also a physical planner is paramount. The other thing that's very, very low, very surface level is, how good does it feel to cross something off? Like the dopamine hit when it's ticked.
Put a little checkbox next to the thing, like tick.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes it's the small things, but that's the reward, and that will give you that positive association to keep going. And sometimes we need that. Right. We need the motivation.
Yeah, I feel like completing tasks feels good. Like, you talk about starting things, and yes, that's great, but completing it is like, yeah, I can tick that off. That feels really rewarding. I'm going to do the next thing now. But like you say, I've never heard it phrased that way, with the rather than a due date, put a due date.
Due dates.
But you're right. It's like you've got to allocate time to do the thing. It's not just like, your essay is due this day. But when you go to do the thing, it might be, on the Wednesday you might outline your thoughts, and then on the Thursday you might do the next part, do some research or something. And so you're actually breaking it down, a bigger task, into smaller steps. And then when you're putting those on the calendar, that feels really manageable, rather than going, oh my gosh, I've got this big, huge thing that feels insurmountable. Now I can go, okay, well, today my task is this one thing. And I can do that. And then once that's done, I can worry about the next thing tomorrow, or at the next due date that you're doing the next part. And that just feels so much easier.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in bite-sized pieces. It's kind of like that, I really resonate with someone who does a lot of deep work, who's kind of finds myself sometimes in, 58-page articles or whatever, that the Pomodoro method of like 25 minutes on and then that 5-minute forced rest is really important for me, because resting even before I feel I need a rest really energizes me for sort of the next session. So in terms of the due dates, I think it's really important, and this again was a learning curve for me, to, if it is that I'm only going to, read one article and get out sort of 3 key ideas, if I've allocated an hour and that takes 45 minutes, I don't keep going. It would be really tempting to go, oh, I'll read another article now because that was quicker than I thought. That's going to encroach on the next do thing that I have put in. So really teaching myself that discipline of stopping when I said I'm going to stop and move on to something else and put my focus into that. If I can afford to do that, then that's that sense of empowerment over the time and investment, as opposed to being managed by, the hours are going to tick by anyway. You might as well, as you say, use them to move the needle in the way that leads you to your, your dream life, as you say.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
All right. So, Natalie, I've taken up a lot of your time and you've been so generous. Is there one message that you'd like to leave our Habit Nerd audience with to help them lead a remarkable life, if it's something we haven't already covered?
Well, I'd just like to emphasize, I think we mentioned self-efficacy. We talked a bit about dreaming, and that this is a step that really comes before goal setting, which leads to that crafting your dream life. But there's a lot of research around self-efficacy, and self-efficacy is believing that you have power, that you can affect change in the world. And if you don't believe that you can change your circumstances, that you can change your actions, that you can change what's going on for you, then all of this other stuff becomes irrelevant. You need to believe that change is possible for you before you can then actually enact all of these things and dare to dream and set goals and change what you're doing, change your habits, change what you're doing in your lifestyle. Because like I said before, all of your days put together make up your life. And so if you can believe that you can change those, even if it's just little changes here and there, my life looks so different now to what it did 8 years ago. I dared to become an entrepreneur and start my own businesses and completely change my life. I got married recently, obviously met someone new, married him, and
Beautiful
so
baby.
Now we have a big family. And so my life is very different. Lots of aspects of my life are very different. And so I think believing that you have the power to change things and having that self-efficacy, I think is a really important part of this too.
Oh, that's so powerful. And self-efficacy, as you say, believing that it is possible and that you have, you absolutely have the tools within your toolkit to make the changes. But for me, it's also that you deserve that, that you were worth putting in that work.
You are worthy.
Yeah. If you were to, it's just fascinating to think that if you were to rewind 2 years, 2.5 years in any of our lives, and so, you've given some really specific personal examples, to think that you would have this new husband, have just enjoyed this beautiful wedding, have joined your families together, be working in a different field, crafting your time in a way that, suits you and your family and aligns with, the life that you want to lead. To just think back, to tell that person 2.5 years ago that was possible, you wouldn't believe it. So the bravery to do it, the efficacy to believe it's true, and the sense of self-worth that that what's on your heart you do deserve, and that that you can enjoy that. That's so wonderful. Natalie, where can our listeners connect with you further?
Yeah, so they can take a look at my website. It's liveinintentionallife.com.au. And I do hang out a lot on Instagram. I should put my phone away more, but I am there quite a bit. So my handle is liveinintentionallife, but all the words are separated by a full stop. So it's live.and.intentional.life.
Okay, great. And I'll obviously put those links in our show notes for our interview today. So Natalie, I just want to say a huge thank you for your generosity of your time, your expertise, and the vulnerability that you showed in giving us all of those wonderful tips. I know we will, finish our conversation today and go and live a more intentional life inspired by all of your messages. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Habit Nerd. I hope you found some new inspiration, learned something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you did enjoy the episode, I would be really grateful if you could please leave a 5-star review, as it helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it should only take you 5 seconds. If you're keen for more tips and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow Habit Nerd.